Let's jump in, man. First things first, welcome to CNN. I'm your host, the underdog Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. All right. Let's get into this. Man, this has been like the week of Trump for me. My last two previous posts before this one were about the Donald himself. All right. So last night, Trump gave his first speech to the Congressional Caucus. Right? And obviously all of America and the world, I would imagine, world media is watching. All right? So Trump has his speech. I just want to give a few observations from last night. Let me start off how I always do when I talk politics. I'm not on the left or the right. I don't vote anymore. I don't have any skin in the game. My observations, I try to be honest. And, I call myself stay balanced, but it's not about staying balanced. It's not about that. It's about trying to honor the Lord and calling out hypocrisy, evil, if I see it when I feel like I should say something about it. So it's not about, I'm trying to stay balanced politically to be neutral because I don't want to offend anybody. No, I believe I'm supposed to be a man of truth in the spirit, so I call out what I see. All right. So last night, Trump gave a speech to Congress, which I was watching and many of the world was watching. And I just want to give a couple of observations just from last night. And then I want to give one thing that I think there's a certain thing I've been saying all the time. And I basically have said this before, that I process the world through the lens of, okay, Lord, what are you doing? What are you exposing? That's how I think about all this stuff. All right. I do not think about what is the left doing and the right doing. I just personally don't think that way. I'm not better than anyone. It's just the way I think. I think, Lord, what are you doing? What are you exposing? So I'm always looking for what is he exposing? Because this is what I believe truly. I believe the Lord desires that everyone be saved, but I also think that he wants to make sure his people are focused. Like the Lord has always cared about other people, but his people in particular, he wants them to be hip, pay attention, and honor him. So I'm always thinking, Lord, what are you exposing to your people and about your people? That's how I think. So this is my perspective. All right. First observation from last night, from Trump's speech to Congress last night, my first observation was Dems are bitter. Man, the Democrats are so bitter. And on one level, I get it. It's politics. You do not like Donald Trump, all of this stuff. I get it. But there are some of those people would say that they're believers. So you got Democratic Christians, but the Dems are bitter. And, and I forgot the representative's name who got kicked out. The older guy with the ponytail. I know he was fighting for, he said he was standing up for Medicaid and all of this stuff that Trump is waving. I just think, I get it, but the Dems are bitter. And it's like, look, here's the reality, right? If you're a Democrat, I get it. You do not like Trump. You do not like the Republicans. You do not like what he's doing. I get it. You're just on the opposite side of the aisle. But here's the reality. Like, Kamala Harris lost convincingly. It wasn't like there was a need for a recount. None of that stuff. Like, whether you like it or not, it wasn't like either Democrats didn't vote, they didn't have confidence in Kamala. So on one level, like the bitterness towards him, I get it, but you just lost, and it is what it is, just like you said in the other election. But where it stood out to me the most, I mean, there were things I was like, okay, I don't remember the Republicans standing up every time Joe Biden or Obama said stuff either. So I think on one level, but not standing up for a black boy who beat cancer was wild to me. Was wild. Now let me say this: even if you think Donald Trump's a racist and that boy was a prop. Let's just say you believe that to be true. You think he used that black boy as a prop. The Democrats, from diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're the party of Black Lives Matter. You're the party of, like, even if you thought that boy was a prop, that boy didn't think he was a prop. That boy asked the Secret Service dude, "Can I hug you?" And like, how do you not stand up for that? Even if you think that that boy was a stunt by Donald Trump, he's still a black boy that you said you represent boys that look like him. He looked like Tamir Rice, who was killed by police. He looked like how do you not stand up and clap for that? Just so that boy can look down and see everyone applauding him. But for that boy to look down there and see a whole bunch of one half of the room not standing, not clapping. Now he may not care because he was probably in shock that this happened, but he'll grow up and definitely not vote Democrat because he's going to learn it was a Democrat instead of the Dems are so bitter you couldn't even stand up. Again, even if you thought the boy was a prop, that boy didn't think he was a prop. That boy believed what he heard and was proud and was excited. And even if not, the boy beat cancer. Like the Democrats are so bitter. You just proved why the country did not vote for your candidate. It is ridiculous to me. But anyway, what do I know? All right, second observation. Let me make sure you understand this. These observations are not going to be about the truth or lies of the politics, right? That's a whole different conversation. There's a lot of stuff that Trump said, if you fact check it, it's just not true. And there's a bunch of stuff. These are just a couple observations because I really want to get to what I think the Lord is trying to show his people, right? Second observation. Trump desperately craves approval. Desperately craves approval. People, on one level, Trump is a man of strength, right? He pushes back. He's argumentative. He doesn't care. But on another level, this dude always, think about this for a second. Set aside that you like Donald Trump if you do. Set aside that, whatever. If you heard your pastor, and again, if you say, well, he's not a pastor. Yeah, but he's a Christian. According to the people, I personally do not believe he is. I do not. And if I'm judging him, I'm sorry, but I need more data. You can't just claim the name of my Lord. Jesus said, people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. I don't see it, but I'm not around them, and I don't hear anybody else that's around them really saying it. I hear conservative Christians in their social media circles saying he's a Christian. Just because you give honor to God, shoot, I saw Diddy thank God plenty of times for winning awards, right? And we know, right? So he desperately craves approval. If your pastor, every time on Sundays, or if he always said, hey, yeah, I bet y'all were liking that sermon I told us, the Lord be giving me that, he'd be giving me that word, right? Yeah, that's probably the best sermon that has ever been taught. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe Jonathan Edwards, maybe Calvin may have taught a better sermon. This is the best sermon since John Calvin. You would be like, what in the world is he talking about, right? I mean, Donald Trump got to the point where he's like, the only administration, I'm paraphrasing, but the administration is greater is George Washington, the first president? You think what you've done in the last 40 days is akin to what George Washington did? It's just all the attention. We won by this many. We had 2,000 counties versus their 500. Like, fam, you've already won. Let it go. And if you're older like me, Teddy Pendergrass, think I better let it go. It's over, fam. It's over. TKO, right? He so desperately craves approval, and that's dangerous. That's so dangerous. Fear of man, the Bible, Proverbs 29:25 says the fear of man proves to be a snare. It's so dangerous to crave approval. So listen, Donald Trump desperately craves approval. First thought is the Dems are bitter. They are bitter. Democrats are so bitter. To not stand up for that black boy, when you said you stand up for black people, is crazy to me. All right. Next observation. Again, these are just observations. All right. You don't have to agree. And you know I don't care if you agree. If you like it, subscribe to the channel. If you don't, I get it. So Trump desperately crazy. Here's the next observation I had. I thought this was wild. Trump calling out the Democrats for not standing. This is where I think Trump craves approval. Because I don't think, maybe he planned to say that. But you're calling out people for not standing and giving you approval, right? And he went on this tirade. Even if I solve the greatest disease and cure it and all this stuff, he named it. He said these people will not stand, right? These Democrats will not stand even not do that, right? Now, I don't know if you remember what happened when he said that, but think about the timing of him calling out the Democrats not standing and clapping, right? After he's saying, well, if I did all this, first of all, Trump didn't do the things that he's saying, so the Democrats, you don't know if how they would respond because you didn't do those things, right? And maybe in his mind he thinks he did. But here's the other side. Right before Trump said that, right before Trump said they wouldn't stand for nothing, and then the Republicans responded to that. Right before he said that, he called Joe Biden the worst president in history, right? He said that, and on multiple occasions, he has clowned the Democrats, said they're stupid, all of this stuff. Now, whether you think that's a true statement or not, which, to be honest, well, I don't know all the presidents in history, but I think a case could be made, right? But that's not beside the point. How do you expect the Democrats to stand up and applaud what you say when you just said to them, the president that represented your party was the worst president in history? Now, you've said it on multiple occasions. You expect them to stand? You think the Republicans would stand and clap if they had won and said Donald Trump is the worst candidate in history? Come on, God. Like to try to call them out for not standing when you say stuff, it just craves approval. It craves approval because you're pointing out you're not getting it from them so that the people who are giving it to. I'm telling you, watch, you're going to see this play out. Every time Donald Trump speaks, he draws attention to himself, what he's done, what he has. And we're going to get deeper in that in a second. Donald Trump desperately craves approval, calling out Dems. And let me tell you why this is it's a wild statement. Because if you watch the thing, Melania didn't stand or smile but one time. Every time, except when she first walked in. You know, she's an attractive woman. They're going to draw attention to Melania Trump, right? First of all, let's just even back up. If Michelle Obama was staying in Chicago instead of at the White House, Republicans would have tore him up. If I'm not mistaken, Melania is in Florida down in Mar-a-Lago. She doesn't live at the White House with this dude, right? If you watched her the whole time, Melania Trump did not. She may have clapped a little bit, but every now I could be wrong. Some of you are more politically inclined than I am. But every time I've watched those kind of addresses, when the party stands up, the wife stands up. I remember what was George W. Bush's name? Was it Linda Bush? Was that her name? George W. Bush's wife? I remember she stood up, clapped every time they did. I remember Michelle Obama would be up. She'd be giving her husband like the dap from a ways away. Like she was up. Melania didn't get up at all. Didn't even smile most of the time. She smiled one time when he drew attention to something she was doing. Now listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. As a pastor, if I'm watching, if a husband is saying something and I happen to glance at his wife and she's just looking like stone faced, like she's not even, my first thought is, ooh, there's trouble in paradise over there. I might need to find out, see if they're doing okay, because she doesn't seem to be excited about what he's saying at all. And she knows him better than all the people that are standing up and clapping. So to call out the Dems, you ain't saying nothing about your wife. You ain't say, and Melania, she's not standing. She should be standing. You didn't do that so I think it's hypocritical, right? All right. This is back to what I said about Zelensky and the way he dressed and Elon Musk. I thought it was interesting that, like, I don't know if they're supposed to stand when they get recognized, but like the first time they called out Elon Musk, he stood up. Okay, cool. Right? And then after he said his name again, it's like, you don't have to stand up again, fam. I just thought it was interesting. Like, let me stand up again. All right. Truthfully, I thought Trump saying the stuff about the trans and all of that stuff, the passing those all, sorry, Dems and everybody else, 100% agree. I'm sorry. I think, this is what I'm going to get to in a second. I think that whole section, I agree with. I agree with what he said. I don't always agree with how he says it. I agree with what he said. I'm sorry. I think it was good to make it so that men cannot play in women's sports. When he highlighted that girl, who I forgot her name, She's a little chubby, and I can say that because I'm chubby. Chubbies unite. But he said that that girl got hit in the face, and it basically affected her body. You know, she no longer could play volleyball because she wasn't in the greatest shape in that moment. But that was crazy. And I think that kind of stuff is dangerous. And that's going to get to something I think the Lord is doing in general. I think I agree with everything he said with that stuff. I think the stuff that he's saying Doge is doing, I just think. So you have federal judges saying, "Hey, it's illegal to actually do this." So they just repealed the executive order of firing people who are in process of getting a government job or newly hired. They just were told you can't do it; it's illegal. And so there's a lot that he's doing to boast about. Oh, this is the greatest. Doge is doing this, and there's a lot going on there, right? So I just think the insensitivity to where people are affected by this joint, right? You can say what you want. I think government spending, all the stuff that he listed about with the government, if all of that's true, it was hard to know because I didn't watch CNN. I watched C-SPAN because I didn't want to be distracted. CNN does a lot of fact checking. And so apparently people who watched the CNN version said that they showed a lot of stuff that was not true. And I know Donald Trump, I don't think he's a truth teller at all. I don't think he's a truth teller. So he'll say stuff. And the reason why is because when you crave people's approval desperately, you will say things to get that approval. If your goal is people's approval, then you'll say whatever you think will get it. And I do believe that he desperately does that. All right. There's a lot of other things I could say, but I want to move to something that I think the Lord is doing, right? But just politically. You have heard me talk about being theological, talking about what I call constitutional morality versus Christological morality. So this is for my believing brothers and sisters. I think what's happened is there's such an idolatry of the political world where Christians even are so desirous for God to move politically that I think their morality, not ours, because I don't think I'm in this camp, to be honest. I have weaknesses, but this isn't one of them. I think there's an idolatry of politics, which is an idolatry of power. And a lot of what's happening is, you know how Christians, our goal is to interpret the Bible, but when you're a theological Christian, you interpret the Constitution. So that's where a lot of morality comes from. And I think what the Lord is doing is exposing what I've called constitutional morality instead of Christological. Christological morality would be what imitates Jesus Christ, what the Bible says, what Christ taught, right? Jesus said, if you love me, obey my commandments, right? We want to understand the word. That's constitutional morality obeys that. So you care about, you're trying to interpret the Constitution and how does it apply? And that's what's happening on the left and the right. So I want to give you just two thoughts quickly and two scriptures of how I think the Lord is exposing politics for believers, not so that we can't vote, so that we're not idolized and we don't put our hope into these entities, right? Let's talk about, there's a lot I could say, but I'm going to make this really simple because I don't want to do an hour and a half video today, all right? So I'm going to talk about the constitutional morality of the left, all right? There is a constitutional morality on the left. And let me break it down for you. What I mean, this is an oversimplification because there's a lot I could say. But on the left, and even Christians on the left who agree with this, some of them do, I thought it was crazy, but the constitutional morality of the left is like, listen, the left struggles with the definition of a woman. Like the left struggles with the definition of what a woman is. Like that's the first time even if you believe in old Earth and you think there were cavemen and all that, let's just say you agree with that. I don't even think cavemen struggled with this, right? I don't even think cavemen got it wrong. I don't think Captain Caveman was grabbing the wrong, thought it was a girl. I don't think so. The left, and what I mean, so let me tell you what their love is. Their view of love is that everything, and they think Christian love, they think Christians should be like this. Their view of love is, it's constitutional, it's not Christological. Their view of love is that it's all-inclusive. It's like an all-inclusive package. You should not tell anyone. Basically, there's no sin in their eyes unless it's Republican. The Democrats have no concept of sin because if you disagree with them on what a woman is or sexuality, they can't handle it. They think that biblical love, Christian love, is to trust and listen to people and not tell anyone that they're wrong and keep your views to yourself. But that's impossible, because if everyone kept their views to themselves, then the view of what is a woman should be kept to themselves too. But they don't do that, right? They don't have their constitutional morality. They can't even define what a woman is. They have no sexual ethic at all. And let me prove to you why I think it's constitutional, not Christological. Watch this. You guys know this passage, but I want to ask you, one of the best ways to understand, try to dig deep in scripture, is ask it questions, all right? So here, this is what happens. We're going to read this conversation between Jesus. Listen to the way Jesus answers a question and ask yourself, why did he start off the question answering it this way, right? Listen to what he says here. Now, when Jesus had finished these sayings, he went away from Galilee and entered the region of Judea beyond the Jordan, and large crowds followed him, and he healed them there. And Pharisees came up to him and tested him by asking, "Is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause?" He answered, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, 'Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let man not separate.'" All right, we've heard this a lot. Let me ask you the question, and this is the question that you ask Scripture. They said in verse 3, "Is it lawful to divorce one's wife?" Here's how Jesus answered. "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female?" And then it says, "And said, therefore," why didn't Jesus just say, well, in the beginning, God said, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Let man not separate what God put together." Why does Jesus answer the question talking about an aspect that they weren't asking about at all? Why does Jesus say, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female"? Now, the Bible doesn't answer the question I'm asking, but Jesus could have not said that part and still answered the question effectively. But he answers a question about divorce, highlighting the gender in which God created humanity. Now, again, the Bible does not say why he said this. This is total speculation on my part, right? But I think he's making a point that God, knowing the future, knowing everything, he's making a deeper point than just about marriage, right? He's making a point that creating the male and female and then becoming one flesh is what, from God's perspective, what marriage is about. Right? One of the main things about marriage is that the two become one flesh, and it's somewhat Trinitarian in the nature, right? Because if you think about this, in the beginning when God created Eve, God was considered a he, the Son is a he, the Holy Spirit is a he, the angels are called the sons of God as far as we know, Satan is a he. So technically speaking, God should have created a Steve and not Eve to be consistent with what we know all celestial beings seem to be affirmed in the masculine, right? But God creates Eve, which is this unique creation. He could have created a Steve that had the ability to procreate. And in terms of who angels are, they identify as male. It could have been crazy, but he doesn't do that, right? He creates a woman. And so the idea of a man and a woman is almost like they're one flesh, like the way that the Trinity is three, same in essence, same in person. Look, Eve is created from Adam, not from the ground, from Adam, right? So she has the identical essence of Adam. So you get this kind of teaching. Jesus is making a point that created male and female from the beginning, because his point is that God wants people to be one flesh, right? Do you notice in the Bible that two men being together or two women being together are never called one flesh? Never called one flesh. But in 1 Corinthians 6, Paul says, don't be with a prostitute because you become one flesh with her. And he's thinking if a man is with a woman. The only time you become one flesh, even though men penetrate men and women penetrate women, you only become one flesh from God's perspective when you become male and female, when it's male and female. So, and he's saying he made them like this from the beginning. Today, the left has no concept of this. They get offended if you say that this person who was biological man, you have to use assigned at birth. It's crazy. I think the Lord is exposed the so that's why I think even with Black Lives Matter and all the stuff they were doing, it was such a sham. Yes, Black Lives Matter, 100%. But what they were doing was such a sham that God exposed them, right? And I was glad for it. I couldn't stand Black Lives Matter, the women, the movement. I agree with the sentiment because as a black man, I think our history shows that we don't always matter. What about blacks who kill black? That's not the point that was being made. It was Black Lives don't matter to the governing authorities, not to each other. That's not the point that was being made, because all people commit crimes against each other. So the constitutional morality of the left struggles with the definition of a woman. But then there's the constitutional morality of the right. And the right, ironically, struggles with something completely different. And it's proven in the view of Donald Trump. So the left struggles with the definition of a woman. The right struggles with the definition of a Christian. Listen, I said this yesterday. These are oversimplifications. There's a drop-down menu that I could give for all these. But the right, I'm talking about Christians. When I talk about these Christians on the right struggle with the definition of a Christian. So the left struggles with the definition of a woman. The right struggles with the definition of a Christian, right? This is part of the constitutional morality on the right that God is exposing. Let me prove this to you, right? So look, here's what 1 John 2:15 through 17 says, all right? This is 1 John 2. This is what it says. It says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. All right. So let me give you, because there's different translations, but one of them, the first one I ever memorized says, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the boasting of what he has and does. All right. So even if you click on this point right here, you'll see this drop down where it says, so the lust of the desires of the, or pride in possessions, right? Pride in possessions. So God is saying that the world, being worldly, is to focus on the desires of the flesh, right? The desires of the eyes, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, the pride of your one's possessions, all right? The right struggles with the definition of a Christian. I kid you not, you can go fact check this, right? I just said it a minute ago. Every time Donald Trump speaks, every single time, remember they said he was a Christian. Every single time he speaks, he boasts about what he has and what he's done. Every single time. I have never heard him. Well, that's not true. There may be a moment where he doesn't. But if you give him more than a soundbite, at some point, Donald Trump. So with the Zelensky meeting, Americans gave more than this, gave more than the Europeans. And he said, no, not really. A little bit more. It was kind of a joke. But every single, I've done this, I've done that, I've created the greatest ever. I'm basically the best president since George Washington. I've done this. All Donald Trump does is boast about what he has. I'm a businessman. I've made billions of dollars. I've done this, I've done that. All he does is boast about what he has or what he's done. And according to 1 John chapter 2, that is loving the world. Believers aren't supposed to boast in those things, and this would be wrongdoing. This is wrongdoing to do this. This is God's perspective. Donald Trump is both, but in 1 Corinthians 13, it says, love does not rejoice in wrongdoing. But conservative Christians love Donald Trump and they say he's a Christian. Let me repeat what I said yesterday. If you voted for Donald Trump, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry. I know people are going to get offended at that. You didn't do anything wrong. If you're a Republican, you're going to vote who's on the ticket, right? If I'm on the ticket and I'm the party, you're going to vote for me, right? If it's Pusty McMichaels, if his name is Quink Wintendale, that's who you vote for, Quink. You going to have a bumper sticker, let's wink it Quink, right? It doesn't matter but when you're trying to pretend like this person is from God and a believer, well, maybe he's from God's sovereignty, but then so was Biden, so was Obama, right? But their conservative Christians are defending him as if he's a believer. And it's like, fam, do you know what a Christian is? Because according to this, is not a Christian. You cannot boast every single time Donald Trump talks. Watch, if you don't believe me, go back and look at any press conference that's longer than a few minutes. Go back and look at last night. don't get me wrong. Well, he's supposed to say his accomplishments. Man, every single time. You can talk about this is what we're trying to do, this is what we've done. It's the greatest since ever. No one's ever had a campaign like this. We won by this many margins. We won. All he does. And if we talk about the lust of the flesh, this dude in the first campaign talked about, man, I touch women's crotches. Remember that? They thought he was going to lose. He called it locker room talk. This is what he says. This dude, and even in this, do y'all remember this? So yesterday, we looked at Donald Trump's video, right? And I went back and watched this again. I went back and watched his little Gaza generated video, right? I was like, let's watch this one more time. So I went back and watched this again. I want you to look at this with me one more time, and I want you to listen to the song, right? Listen to the lyric. It starts off with this: Donald's come to set you free, right? Something about all the language, bringing the light, right? All that language is what Jesus said. Whoever the Son sets free is free indeed. Jesus brings, you're the light of the world. Listen to this language. I mean, you might think, oh, this is just what it was, an AI video, but I think it's not about who did the video. It's about God sovereignly letting Donald Trump posted this on his Truth Social Network. This is what he posted. Listen, watch the video one more time and look at the boasting of, watch it in light of what we just read. The pride of life, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of one's possessions. And watch this video again from yesterday, all right? I'm going to be quiet and you watch this again. This is quick, like 40 seconds. Watch.
Donald is coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1.
Do I have to explain this again? Right? You have in this video, you have all the things that 1 John 2 said, right? First of all, Donald, listen, let's go back. Listen to this, where this song starts off. Let's go back to this, right? Let's just go back and look at this real quick. All right, listen to this again one more time.
Donald is coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see.
Donald's coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see, right? That's straight like language of what we would say Jesus does, right? Conservative Christians, if a Democrat had said that, Biden's coming to set you free, Kamala's coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see, they would have been outraged. I haven't heard any outrage from conservative Christians about this, right? But now process this from the standpoint of the verses that we just looked at, right? The pride of possessions, the pride of one's life, the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride in one's possessions. And look at this. Watch this one more time, right? Watch.
No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new life. Feast and dance, the deal is done.
Already, what we just saw, we've seen bearded women dancing, right? Lust of the eyes, right? Then you see Trump standing with a woman in a club or whatever who's hardly dressed. You have right here throwing up money in the air, right? Jesus teaches the love of. Look, I'm not even going to, because people just don't. This is what I think the Lord is doing, right? I think the Lord is exposing the constitutional morality on the left and the right. Not that you can't vote for people, but he's trying to show his sons and daughters, don't idolize these people. Don't follow the constitutional morality. Keep it Christological. I don't have it. I'm not going to put it up on the screen, but popular conservative Allie Beth Stuckey tweeted this last night while I think she was there, or she was watching it at least. And she tweeted this after what Trump said about the Democrats. Here's what she tweeted. He's absolutely right. No use in trying to make friends with the Dems. If they're going to be mad no matter what, may as well give them a reason. I don't know this woman's heart. I'm sure she loves the Lord. That sentiment, and that's one of the lightest ones I took from her. That's not a believer sentiment. Give them, they're going to be mad no matter what. Someone will say, yeah, but remember Jesus said, well, the Pharisees, did you know? But that's Jesus though, fam. Like we're told to love our enemies and pray for our enemies. I think the rhetoric that we use towards people publicly, what did Jesus say? Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Stop making it seem like what Jesus taught is only what for him. No, it represents all of us. So I just think, what a crazy time. What a crazy time. I think the Lord is exposing believers on all sides. And I don't trust any of them. Vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. If you vote Republican, you didn't do anything wrong. If you vote Democrat, you stand up for the Lord, whoever you voted for. But who you obey, the what you obey from, what are you obeying from, right? Who are you comparing yourself to? Believers do not compare themselves to other people, right? That's Luke 18, the Pharisee and the tax collector. Believers compare themselves to the scriptures, and that's the problem. That's what I see happening. So, but I'm sure I'm wrong. This is such a touchy subject. Oh man, let's get it in. All right, let me do a couple of these. All right, Trump is a lying criminal sex offender. Is less than okay. There we go. Trump is a convicted felon and much more on the criminal side. That I agree with. I think that's interesting. That I know many people who would say, "Hey." I know many people who would say, hey, I got railroaded too. Those are trumped up charges, but they're felons. They can't vote. But he's a convicted felon on paper. Whether you agree or not with the conviction doesn't matter. He's a convicted felon and he's president. It's really interesting. It's pretty crazy. Yes, it's ridiculous. You literally call their candidate president stupid. We heard it at the, and then complain that people aren't standing. That's what I mean, bro. This dude just craves people's approval. It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating. Trump hates Trudeau because Melania loved Justin. I don't know. Maybe you're right. He's definitely a better looking dude. Apparently there was a picture of her like looking like she was googly eyeing the dude, right? But I mean, I don't know if Trump's been faithful, so who knows? All right. Melania is quite emotionless. I always attribute that to being very irrational to me. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think so. What's going? The funny thing is Republicans probably would stand up and cheer if a Democratic president would have called Trump would stand up and cheer if a Democratic president called I think you mean the Republicans probably would not stand up and cheer. I don't think they would. Laura Bush, that's right, Laura Bush. Thank you. They weren't standing out of an act of protest, not out of heartlessness. They were standing out of an act of protest. They weren't standing. That may be true. Yeah, I think if I were the Democrats, I wouldn't have been standing for many things. But the black boy in some certain things, 100%. I think they could have stood there. And it's hilarious that people are cheering over our country, abandoning another to get slaughtered, want to demonize the Dems for that. 100%. Then I think it's just crazy. I just thought so many things were just crazy to me. I just thought, wow, man, I'm late to it, but I'm here for whatever I can. Well said, bro. All right, just Christian to Christian, do you believe we should have separation of church and state? It depends on how you define, Joe, separation of church and state. So let's be clear about what separation of church and state is. It's not written in any constitutional documents, right? Separating church and state was a conversation between Thomas Jefferson and I forgot what the guy's name was. And the problem was one of the reasons why that the U.S. seceded from Britain was because the Church of England, right? You know, it's funny because to England, they call what we call the American Revolution the Presbyterian War. Because the goal was, hey, we want to, it became taxation without representation, right? But the reason why they even came to America was the freedom to practice religion. That's why it's in the First Amendment. There was a concern that the American government would adopt a particular denomination and make it the church like England did. And so that's where that comes from. So it depends on what you mean by separation of church and state. If you mean the state should not tell the church how to live, I totally agree with that. You cannot tell us how to obey God. I'm with the apostles in Acts 4 and 5, telling the Sanhedrin, what are we supposed to do? Not preach because you said it or because of the word of God? So it depends on what you mean by that. And And with the president is making some Christians look like they are unchristian because they will not call out Trump like some would not call out Biden. Stop the idol worship. 100%, yeah. So if the right struggles, then how is the left better? Well, Zero Zombie, I already said that. I already walked through that, famo. As a Christian, why are you passing judgment? Because here's what Jesus said, right? We must be wise as doves, wise as serpents and shrewd as doves, right? We must be infants in mature in thinking, but infants in evil, right? Hebrews 5:14. We must, it says, but solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment, right? The power of discernment by constant practice, right? Distinguishing between good and evil. Discernment is to make judgments, my brother. Like, how do you're taking Matthew 7, do not judge, and misunderstanding it. You cannot be discerning as a Christian and not make judgments because you have to discern what good and evil is. If I don't judge, then I can't determine what good and evil is. So that's neither here nor there. I get what you're saying, but I think that's a terrible understanding. And I don't know if you're a Christian or not, but I think that's a terrible perspective. LOL. What's the passing judgment verses? Just hit those. He's supposed to talk accomplishments. For Trump, that's like saying there's nothing wrong with an alcoholic drinking at a bar. That's what you're supposed to drink with his ego. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. That's when I judge. Well, I already addressed that, but I appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Song Low Key Slaps, Kurt remix. Now, it does have a nice rhythm to it, Tony, but I ain't hitting that joint. Okay, when he said Christological, it's now over, LOL. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Zero Zombie, but I appreciate you doing it. I never stood up or put my hand on my heart for the Pledge of Allegiance, even in second grade. It didn't make sense to me why pledging to God was a tradition in public schools. Well, I think, but that's what the nation was saying, right? One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But it wasn't pledging allegiance to the God, though. It was pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. It didn't say that they were pledging allegiance to God. It said the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, was a phrase, but you're pledging allegiance to the flag, not to God. That was just an idea. So anyway, what do I know? This is just my perspective on the Trump meeting last night. Like and subscribe to the channel or don't. But I appreciate y'all. I'm about to go hang with my kids. Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll see you next video. Grace and peace.